As of the 5.5 Unreal Engine update, there is something known as Sparse Data included in the mod kit. What this is applied to certain variables on certain classes, like demonstrated here. I'm in a Dino class, and there's this variable mate boost range. When it's connected to the graph like this, it says class global. And what this means is this variable value will be applied to all instances of this class with whatever variable value this is. So for example, if you were to just change the mate boost range to something like this, every instance of a dodo character BP sparse data, which is just a child of the dodo, will have this new mate boost range. All of them. Just by running this once. It doesn't even matter where you run this. You could run this on an unrelated actor class. As long as it was pointing towards the dodo character BP sparse data, it would change all of them to use this value. You can tell which variables are sparse data when you compile the blueprint, assuming this exec line is connected. You'll get warnings in the compiler results. They are just warnings. You don't have to do what they say, but it's just an indication that there may or may not be an issue with whatever you're doing. If you disconnect it, the warning goes away, but so does that little tag on the variable. So it might be a little misleading if you're unfamiliar with it. To demonstrate what it does, I will show you some examples on dodos. So here's my little sparse dodo, and as you can see, it's a female. No mate boost. Here's another female. No mate boost. A female with mate boost. And then we have our male all the way down here with mate boost. So this male and this female are just close enough to get mate boost, but these ones aren't. So I set up a little test buff just for playing around. And all it does is on a hotkey, it finds a sparse data dodo in the world, just one of them, and sets the mate boost range to some absurdly huge number so that you can see it represented in the dev kit. So as you can tell, all the mate boost ranges are correct, vanilla that is, and when I run it just on one dodo, all of a sudden the values changed on all of them. So that's what it does, because it's not editing just this dodo or just that dodo, it's editing the entire class at runtime. So it can be super useful, but can also be not exactly what you wanted if you want it to be applied to only a specific dodo. So how do we work with this system so that we can edit one dino specifically rather than an entire class? Well, Wildcard presented us with the Sparse Data Override Manager. It's just a blueprint class. So you can make a new blueprint, and if you look for sparse data, it's a Sparse Data Override Manager. You can just make one of those, and you can add it to your mod data asset blueprint. As it stands right now, this doesn't stack appropriately with other mods, so you'll probably have to put it into the Primal Game Data entry instead of in here, but I'm doing it in here just for ease and speed mostly. So just keep that in mind. Once you have your Sparse Data Override Manager, you'll find all the functions on the left here that you can override, and one little default that you'll need to change, the manager ID. This is just the ID for your unique Sparse Data Override Manager, so name it something reasonable like this. This is used in case you need to access it outside of this blueprint, which you may or may not need to do, and I will be doing in this example. So these are the functions that you can override, and what it does is it edits the access to whatever variables these are. So like female mating time, random mutation chance, etc., etc. I'm just going to use the mate boost range because it's very simple to demonstrate visually. You can see it being updated. The important part to know is that you don't call these functions from anywhere else in your mod. You just implement them here, and they're changed behind the scenes. So anytime the variable that you're editing, mate boost range, is used, it calls this function, which then returns either updated or vanilla settings, depending on what the graph is doing, assuming it's implemented in the first place. So if you didn't want to use this, you don't have to implement the function, and then it's never used, and that's that. We're going to do something fairly simple, which gives you some control around things, and it should be a fairly clear example of what it's doing. So first things first is I made two little functions, and one is just a set system state so that you can turn the whole system on or off. And the other is a toggle, which does much the same thing. It just flip-flops between true and false every single time you fire the function. In the mateBoost range override function, we'll check if the system is enabled, and if it's not, it returns the base value. The base value here is the value that the variable should have without you doing any monkeying around. So on a dodo, for example, the mateBoost range is 2500. This is what that will be. Current value would be an edited one if it was changed outside of here. And the for instance pin is the actor that this is currently being applied to. It's an object by default, so it can be applied to many different things. So you can cast it to whatever this variable may be applied to. In this case, it's obviously only dodos because you can't breed anything else. So assuming it's a dyno, we return either 25,000 or the base value, depending on whether or not they have a test buff that I made on them. The buff doesn't do anything itself, it's literally just a buff that sits on a dyno. And if the cast fails, it returns the base value. The idea being that if you buff any dyno and the system is enabled, it will get the increased mating range of 25,000. So that means you can turn the whole system on and off simply, and you can apply the changes to any dyno simply, just by giving them one little buff that basically does nothing. So I'm back over on my test buff, and it's just for ease of access again. So on a hotkey, I call to the server, and I get Sparse Data Override Manager with my specific manager ID. This is the ID that you entered into your data manager in the defaults. Don't typo. You get the specific instance class, and then we call the toggle function. So the toggle will turn it on or off, depending on whether it's on or off. The other hotkey I made, all it does is it gets a nearby dyno, and it adds a buff to it. And the next time you press it, it destroys all those buffs. So in order to apply this, all we do is we turn the system on with one hotkey. We go find a dyno, and we get reasonably close to it. And then we push our other hotkey, and you should see the results. So here's our dynos. As you can tell, the mateBoost ranges are still vanilla, out of range and out of range. If we hit our hotkey, we turn the system on. Nothing happened yet because no one has any buffs. And with our other hotkey, all of a sudden, he has mateBoost range. You can see he has the buff. This one does not have the mateBoost range because there's no buff. So if we can turn the system off again, we just push our hotkey. Still has the buff, but the system's turned off, so no mateBoost range. Back on again, and it's turned back on. If we destroy the buffs, mateBoost is lost, even though the system is on, because no one has any buffs. Just to be clear, these functions will run on any actor that implements that variable that we're editing. So mateBoost range, which is on every single dyno. So this function will fire quite a lot, quite quickly. So you want to abort as fast as you can without doing a whole bunch of logic in here, because it's going to run all the time. Some of the other ones might not be like that. It sort of depends on what they do. And I won't go into that because it's case-by-case basis. So for example, this won't run on players because they don't have a mateBoost range, but it will literally run on every single dyno. So that's why this is here. For very simple, we don't have to do any casts or calculations. If it's off, just return quickly and do nothing else. This might be another simple example to use if you wanted to say like a system-wide, a server-wide, almost global buff kind of thing. You could do something like this. When the system is on, it uses a huge mating range, and when it's not, it uses the vanilla ones. This would apply to every single dyno on the server all at the same time, so everyone has like a happy birthday mating boost range increase kind of thing. without needing to actually buff the entire server. So that might be something to consider too. Also worth noting is that if you're doing the graphing of the sparse data, something like this, on an actual character class, so like whether you're calling to this class or doing it internally, this is a class-specific version. So these changes here wouldn't apply to all dodos or all dinos. They would just apply to the sparse data dodos, much in the same way that the buff did earlier. This here, this would change the mate boost range of just the sparse data dodos. It wouldn't apply to all other dinos on the server, any other class, just this one. Whereas this would apply to every dodo and every dino class on the server.